Hi, everyone. Welcome to Reporters Roundtable. I'm Rafe Needleman in San Francisco. This is our weekly show on a single tech topic each time. And you know, next week what's happening on March 7th, Apple is announcing, everybody expects, the iPad 3. That's what we think is going to happen. Now, why is this portable, but not all that portable form factor working out so well? What is it about a machine that is best used on the couch? One growing use case for tablets is the second screen. It seems we aren't just satisfied anymore with watching TV like we used to, or just playing a game. Now we need a second screen to keep us engaged. Businesses are growing up around the whole idea of the second screen, and programmers are starting, by programmers I mean content programmers, content developers are starting to take this ancillary auxiliary screen market seriously, and that's what we're talking about today. That's right, it's Couch Potato version 2. So to talk about this today, I've got two people who are really expert in this category. On my left, Jeremy Toman, who is the Chief Product Officer at Digit. Jeremy, thanks for coming in.
Sure.
And across from me, Ole Lutyens, who's the, I told you I would stumble over that name, I'm sorry. Ole Lutyens, who is the Chief Creative Officer over at MX, and they make second screen apps. Thanks for coming in.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Rafe.
All right, so listen, to me, when I was growing up, the second screen was a Swanson Salisbury steak dinner.
Right.
That was it. Why do people need this, or are they just being shoved this second screen concept?
I'll start. First of all, I think it's a funny phenomenon. When we started making second screen apps, we realized pretty quickly, you know what, we could have done this as soon as the laptops came out. It's just nobody really thought about it. Maybe these machines were too awkward, but people were starting to have the laptops open and look at IMDb and whatnot at the same time. I think that when you talked about the form factor, it just had to get maybe that little bit smaller. It had to be like a one-handed thing you can throw down like a magazine, et cetera, et cetera. And I think what happened at the same time is that with the rise of social networks, we see that the teenage generation is just basically not collecting content anymore, like buying DVDs or albums or CDs. They're aggregating content, and they want to do that all the time. So the attention split is really where this market started being interesting for investors, where people realized, well, the eyeballs are going away from just the TV screen, and we probably want to be on all of these screens.
People have talked a lot about with the younger generation, about the always-on generation, about people who are always plugged in and engaged. Is that what this is about, Jeremy?
It's partially about that. I think, to follow up, the point that was just being made is that there was already stats that people were using a second screen while watching TV. So the numbers that we were seeing even 2 years ago was in the 40 to 60% of TV watching happened with the second screen in hand. So that could have been a laptop, but it's really about the phones and the tablets. I think the interesting that's going on is this kind of push-pull phenomenon is that marketers hear, hey, 60% of TV watching happens with the second screen in hand. People are, as you said, Rafe, young people are doing all this. And then what's happened is that's turned around to saying, oh, well, they must be using those second screens about television all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the big thing is a lot of the time that's words with friends, or it's Angry Birds, or it's texting with a buddy about plans you're doing tomorrow. So there's tons of opportunity. Don't get me wrong. Second screen for TV is huge. But I think it's also being a little bit kind of shoved down people's throats right now. You got to do this. You got to do this. And I think we're maybe a little bit away from figuring out where that happy medium really is going to end up.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. I thought about analogies before, like maybe going back to Friendster and MySpace to think about why did they not work, and all of a sudden Facebook and Twitter take everything by storm. Yeah. Maybe we're in a three-legged horse race right now where like we have this thing, people have it in their hands, what can we do on it? But the experience hasn't really been figured out.
Now, one thing I do want to get into, I do want to make everybody aware of as we go on here, Ole, your company, MX, builds actual second screen content apps.
Yes, we do.
And Jeremy, your company Digit does directories and remotes?
We have a TV guide and remote control application.
Okay, so different approaches to making use of the smart big screen, whether it's a phone or a tablet, while you're plopped on the couch watching your TV. Are you guys at odds or complementary or what? I mean, you can only run one app at a time, right?
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody's at odds. I think the ones that are at odds, in my opinion, are about what you do while watching TV. So if Ole's company makes an app for a given show, let's pretend it's 30 Rock. That 30 Rock app might be at odds with a company like GetGlue, who's really trying to get you to use their kind of generic second screen app at the same time. So I think we're going to see some issues there. Our focus is really all about up until the point where someone's watching TV. At that point, we think the user might be off. Again, whether it's Words with Friends or the aforementioned fictitious 30 Rock app, we don't really know what people want to do after that point.
Yeah, no, I think that's where we're similar in terms of we're trying to figure out the second screen, but very different. We are focused on rich media experiences. We're trying to figure out the user experience when you're interacting with the content around the show. We're building content complementary to the show that you're watching, and the social integration, the check-in, and the talking with friends really was a second thought for us. First of all, we tried to find an engagement, the right amount of interest towards the first screen versus the second screen. And the interesting thing that we found is that when we do that, the second screen turns into the first screen.
Go on. That's fascinating. So, so people are spending millions of dollars per episode, and they say, well, let's have a second screen app, and they give some company, maybe yours, I don't know, I'm making this up, $50,000 to build an app, and it turns out that people are watching that app more than the hugely expensive show?
Well, it happened when we started. We built a sync technology that can control a Blu-ray disc from the second screen app. So all of a sudden, and that's funny because you're making somewhat of a remote concept too. All of a sudden, that second screen app turns into the remote control for your movie, and you can go and say like, "Oh, this is cool. Who's that?" And you tap on it, and then the disc jumps forward to that scene, and all of a sudden, you edit your own version of the film by interacting with the second screen. We're not in the TV space yet, so that's very different. So we can control the playback of a film, digital or on Blu-ray.
So is this more important? This whole concept that we're talking about, is it more important for live appointment viewing or for what you're talking about, where you pop a disc in or you play a stream?
Yes and yes. I think the live so TV kind of falls, for anyone not familiar with the terms, there's appointment TV, which is the stuff you watch live. It's really 5 categories. It's reality TV, events like the Oscars, and sports, news, and then big episodes. So like the season finale of Entourage would be an appointment show because everybody wants to watch it, or the season premiere of Game of Thrones, things like that. That's appointment TV. That's the burgeoning social TV side of things, where people maybe are checking in or tweeting or doing something while that show's happening. And then there's catch-up TV, which is everything else. So if you're watching last week's episode of 30 Rock on your DVR, you don't really care what someone's tweeting about because you're 7 days behind. So I think the social TV side of things is very, very appointment driven. That's where the check-ins come into play. The tweets and hashtags, etc. And I think that's an area where I don't think anybody in this room knows where it's going to go. I have a personal suspicion that it's very hard to build an entire platform around something that only accounts for about 40% of TV watching. That's kind of my beef with social TV.
Yeah, but I think the what do you call it? The second watching,
catch up.
The catch up TV is exactly where what we're experimenting with comes into play, because we also have to look at, you start something off your DVR or a Hulu stream. What is it that's interesting? Is it interesting to review all the tweets that happened while that was live? Probably not so much. But would it be interesting to say, if you say 30 Rock, well, what's that crazy Stars and Stripes underwear that Kenneth is wearing right now? Can I buy that somewhere? Right, that's maybe the second.
That sounds like the marketers both. It sounds like a total fantasy. It's like I'm watching TV and they've got all this product placement, and then I want to buy that thing. It's like maybe I'm old, but if I'm watching a highly produced, lovingly crafted, maybe even commercially crafted, but it doesn't matter. It's crafted. It's time coded to the nanosecond. I want to watch that show.
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think this is the biggest fallacy, is that there is this energy right now toward distracting people from the shows they're watching. And don't get me wrong, I think there are a lot of times where the complementary apps make a lot of sense. I think a lot of the stuff that all these companies are doing makes a lot of sense for a lot of the content. I think it's got to be like it can't be the pendulum that's sitting at one end. It can't be, we expect you to do lots of interactivity. I mean, we've heard from marketers since the 90s about being able to buy Jennifer Aniston's sweater. That was always the thing. Is like, we're going to sell them that sweater. And no one's done it. Nobody seems to really want it, but it sounds great in a white paper. So I'm not a belief on the buy the thing you're watching. I do though think who is that character? I've seen them in a movie before. What's going on here? That quote sounds familiar. Where's that from? I think that aspect of kind of that real-time quick research thing is where some of these apps could be a lot of fun.
And I completely agree, and I didn't mean that buying off the television thing is what we're focused. No, it's good that you said we need something to disagree on. No, the digital overlay to Hollywood it's an old fantasy, but who's going to be allowed to do that, right? If not the content owners themselves. What I'm interested in, what I'm fascinated about, is to find the right mix, to find the right amount of stuff that you can do on your tablet. For example, we're experimenting with a save for later function. So you have content coming across the second screen device, and you see something that you're interested in. You shouldn't, pick this up and then start digging around. You should just be able to hit the easy button, right? I mean, and say, okay, so later I'll go back and research that. And
or even have an archive, right? It'd be cool if one of your apps could just, at the end of it, you can say, who were all the guest stars? What were the great quotes here? What was that underwear? All the things that's just there for you.
Right.
That to me is where the second screen can come in really valuable. During the commercial break, pull up the little things that you've been missing, etc. And I think there's tons of opportunity laying ahead on that side.
And sorry.
No, go ahead.
In that space, I think it's interesting to watch the metadata companies, the companies that are now trying to figure out how to tag all that information per time code. So who is on screen right now? Right, the content recognition isn't so far that they will recognize Brad Pitt's voice and say that's Brad Pitt. Somebody has to look at it, know that he's on screen at that moment in time.
But that can't be too far away from us.
Right, as far away as the electrical engine in every car, maybe. I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah. But now your company does second screen content, and you do a bunch of children's programming, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, we're moving into that space.
Okay.
We're just starting an initiative with the National Academy of Sciences that looks into how we can leverage the fact that children, middle school to high school age children, they're literally living on their mobile devices any moment they're not in a classroom. So how can we bridge that gap, and how can we leverage the excitement about entertainment properties like movies and games into educational learning?
It just strikes me, kids watch the same show over and over and over again. And so I could see, and so what I'm trying to get at is how different types of programming lend themselves to an ancillary auxiliary app. Sports, obviously.
Sure.
It's real time, and if you're a sports fan, sports fans, news viewers are already, finance news viewers are already getting essentially second screen content with all the crawls all over the screen. You're barraged with information. Why not offload that, right?
Sure. It's a really good point, Rafe, is that one of the biggest mistakes made in TV is, or especially in new TV stuff, is companies that start blanketing TV as this one thing. Like all TV watching is the same, because it's just so not the same. Every genre is different. When I watch a comedy, it's very different than when I watch a 1 hour drama, very different than sports. And by the way, you just shouldn't be watching televised news anymore. That should only be on your second screen. It's just terrible. But
views expressed by my guests do not express those of my parent company, CBS. Thanks, Jeremy.
Sorry,
That's all right.
Get your news from the internet, people. But I think that's the thing, and it is what I like about what all these companies are doing, and a bunch of other startups I know, is that they're focusing on very specific types of content. So I've seen some second screen apps all around sports that are great, because we all know that when you're watching the game, you want to find out, what was this person's streak or their hitting average or whatever it is for whatever given sport. And the biggest mistake, and the only advice I'm giving to anyone in this space, is stop thinking that all TV is equal, because it's very much not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that, to the point, I think the tweet statistics during the Academy Awards are fantastic. When stuff gets a little boring on screen, the tweets go up. The halftime show is almost no tweeting.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So there were Jeremy, you mentioned that there's appointment viewing. There's two kinds. There are several kinds, but there were two big events recently that had a lot of second screen potential: the Academy Awards, and I guess the Grammys, and then the Super Bowl. Did you guys experience any of those with a second screen in hand, and what was it like, and where were the opportunities there?
There's a lot of blogs that have been indexing this content recently. A company called Bluefin Labs does a ton of stats on kind of second screen, really more social, what are people tweeting during shows, things like that. Interestingly, we're at this pace right now where social activities during TV for appointment TV are on their rise. Every event, it's going up and up and up, and there's, whether it's tweets per second or overall tweets or number of users tweeting, all this stuff's on the way up. So we're really at this interesting kind of growth era for the what do you do while you're watching the show. But they've diagnosed already that the stats on the Academy Awards and the stats on the Super Bowl were radically different. And even the Grammys actually apparently beat the Academy Awards for I don't think tweets per second or overall tweets or something like that.
Yeah, doesn't that only mean that maybe the Academy Awards were a better program?
Well, there's also
more engaging.
Spend less time on Twitter.
Better content. There's also the argument about, if you're watching the Academy Awards, you're probably watching a lot more video. The Grammys, really,
Right.
do you really need to see Adele, or are you really just listening to it,
Right.
And but what's also interesting is the side analysis of the potential demographics that, are the Academy Award audience tweeting as much as the Grammy audience? Probably not.
Yeah, it's interesting. I tried the Academy Awards. I tried a bunch of the social apps, and they were mostly very disappointing experiences. And first of all, I watched the Academy Awards with friends, and every 2 seconds a star appears on screen and makes a joke. So everybody's always laughing and there's banter, and so the syncing just doesn't work. Into Now couldn't catch it. I mean, it's just not the fault of the app, but the room was just plain too loud. When it finally caught it, I really didn't know what the app wanted me to do. And so I went to the official Oscars app, where they knew exactly what was going to happen when on stage, which was not synced. And the only good thing that I found there was that you can actually go between backstage cameras.
The Oscars did something very interesting, and I see this happening in sports potentially as well, where there's the main screen. You see these control rooms, right? Everybody's seen the picture of a TV director in the giant control room, surrounded by monitors in the dark, nuclear bunker with a big screen saying, take this shot, take that shot. And what you are seeing when you watch any show is one shot of dozens. And what these second screen apps do, like the Oscars app did, is let you watch on a second screen a different view. Right. Which is a really interesting idea.
Really interesting, but also deeply flawed, because it had audio. They were doing interviews backstage while you're hearing, Murray on stage making jokes, etc. But I wanted to talk about some of the other apps because I felt that there was a huge wasted opportunity. What I was really looking for was not the tweets. What I was really looking for was expanding on the film that was being discussed. Like, okay, there's a foreign documentary, foreign short, something like that. You hardly ever heard about it. So the apps wasted that opportunity in giving me that right away, real time, in really deep exploration. I had to go back to the IMDb app and look up those films. So I think that's where the user experience and the syncing really have to come together.
Agreed.
The next step.
I completely agree. I think, again, it's this focus on, this is the problem with TV's industry is it's ad driven. All the money in TV is about advertising, and so you kind of follow the money to see where the innovation's happening, and the money sends to ads goes to ad buying, and then you've got the social TV phenomenon, which is getting advertisers and marketers excited, so they're investing in it. And so instead of companies thinking about it holistically, saying what would be the greatest experience we could make around the Oscars, around the Super Bowl, around 30 Rock, around whatever it might be, right now too much of the emphasis is, we know people are tweeting. We got to capture and engage, and I think that's great. But it feels like this whole social media thing all over again, with companies just artificially shoving their way into consumers' lives. I think instead, if the Oscars had a great Oscar pool thing, hey, collect with all your friends, make your little voting ballot. Here's a link to all the movies that were in it. Here's the previews, behind the scenes content. I'm not a big fan of all this second and third angle thing. I don't want to work to watch TV. I just want to kind of sit back and just watch it. I don't mind sending out a tweet or whatever, but at the end of the day, I think it's, again, people are expecting us to put too much time and energy into what's supposed to be a pretty entertaining experience.
What they call the big difference between computers and television is what they call the lean forward versus lean back.
Right.
And with this stuff, which way am I supposed to lean?
We put a device between lean forward and lean back.
It's lean sideways. It's like a Seder.
You lean halfway forward to get your iPad.
It's a big mistake because it's this is the thing, is that people are using the terms. They're saying, oh, it's lean back. But it's not. What lean back actually means is that you're leaning back and you're not doing anything.
Your mind is leaning back.
Yeah, you're leaning back. You're not engaging with something. The most you might do, it's like American Idol. You'll pull out your phone and vote, right? Or you'll do some little tiny amount of interaction. Lean forward is cool. There's a lot of times where I'm happy to engage with content. It's fun sometimes, but we've got to decide. Are you letting someone just kick back and relax? Which is really why most Americans watch 4 hours of TV a day. It's not to be engaging and voting and tweeting and challenging and picking. It's to be escaping from the run-of-the-mill daily lives. It's like, I want to sit back and watch whatever, whether it's train wreck TV or sitcoms or dramas, whatever it might be.
Right, but isn't that exactly the reason why we're here? Because those statistics are drastically changing, and the spending power generation is apparently not doing that as much anymore as they used to.
We can go into this one. I have yet to see a stat that shows that. Here are the stats I know. TV ad dollars went up last year. TV watching went up last year. Overall video consumption went up last year. And anytime that I hear that argument, it always comes back to, well, kids these days and they watch the YouTubes. But those
that's
kids
not what I
will
mean. What I mean is
Okay,
the
good.
statistics that say that 92% of the 13 to 24-year-olds have a mobile device active running while they're watching TV. Of course,
Right,
the
but they
TV's
send 400 texts a day. They're sending something like 60 texts an hour, including while they're in classrooms.
Right.
I think we have a whole other issue with that to deal with.
Right. Well, I wanted to go back to the point you made earlier. Lost my train of thought here for a second.
One of the things you said, Ole, you were actually painting a somewhat hopeful vision for future content consumers, which is that they're engaged.
Mm-hmm. That was the point. You said that the instead of figuring out the greatest experience, I think maybe there's also a flaw in the production workflow. That people get together and say, like, we have to make this app because these stats just came out and we have to be there really quick, and we don't have time to really think about what is a great experience. Mm-hmm. And with the speed that everything's moving, where we're apparently doubling our knowledge on the planet every 18 months, how do you figure out a fairly complex behavior pattern that involves the whole body, your mind, your eyes, your ears, and potentially the person next to you on the couch?
Right.
So I think there's definitely ways to go.
So speaking of the person next to you, and one of the big parts of the second screen experience we've touched on it a little bit is the idea of the social TV viewing, or social content consumption. Now, of course, on computers, we have moved into an era of social games. Zynga, World of Warcraft. People are accustomed to gaming now with friends. The second screen can be a great enabler of social content consumption, where we used to sit on the couch maybe with our family, and now if we're sitting there in home alone, we can actually be engaged with other people. Is that a big part of the second screen movement here?
It's a big part of the movement. I think it's a tiny part of reality. First of all, just on my, again, I have bones to pick with the term social. It's that social gaming's been social since the Atari 2600. The web's been social since the 90s, and TV's been social since the day it was invented, with multiple people watching multiple shows, sitting on the couch, talking about the water cooler the next day. All we've done is change the pace at which people can share those experiences. I think there will absolutely be more socially engaged stuff where you can chat with friends, etc. The problem I have is, I think if I look at the one biggest trend in TV, it's more personalized, on-demand, in-location viewing. In other words, you watch what you want, where you want, whatever. No rules apply anymore. So in that world, how do I have a social experience with a buddy of mine across the coast watching the same thing because he's going to take a bathroom break, right? Like, it's a funny comment, but it's true. How do you really create, how do you really get everybody who's having this socially conjoined experience to actually pause together?
No.
I have problems with that.
I think that's over.
You think, all right,
I think that's a pipe dream, and I think that's exactly where the being in control of when you pause your thing and what are you watching and jumping maybe to the next episode, etc. is I think that's an inherent. It's thin ice to talk about human nature,
right?
But I think that putting people in the driver's seat has worked really, really well. It worked with a car, literally, and now it works with their digital video devices. So. But leaving comments or showing off a cultural reference, seeing something that Jeff Bridges is saying, relating that to another film, now I think that's where the social network is powerful, where you can show off, making that reference, sending it to a friend, and they might be able to relive that moment in the film.
I think that's a really good point. A lot of the social networking is really about what some guy, I forget his name, called the ego boo or the ego boost. It really is. You say you're sharing, but really you're showing off. Right. It's about your ego.
Showing off and competing.
We are just animals, aren't we? I want to talk about two things really briefly here. One is the concept of the second screen app that automatically synchronizes with what you're watching on the big screen, whether or not it's live or recorded. And that uses the technology that a Yahoo acquisition Into Now made popular, where it actually listens to what's happening and syncs up. That's called ACR, automatic content recognition.
It's actually called audio fingerprinting or audio watermarking. Content recognition is the big picture. Video recognition would fall under ACR as well.
How big a deal is that, and who's winning, who's losing? I mean, who are the big players in ACR right now?
Big players. So Into Now didn't actually invent the technology; they licensed it, which is interesting. There's a big player called Audible Magic. Grace Note does it. I think Rovi does it. There's about 4 other startups doing it.
Media Echo, TV Plus.
It's a pretty common thing. It's fairly commodity. I know a startup building it from scratch, and their estimate from start to finish is measured by weeks now. So I don't think it's actually a hard problem. I think it's interesting, but to me, it's a Band-Aid technology. It's something that will get us kind of from where we are now to the future, because we're not far away from a highly connected living room. At current TV replacement cycles, basically everybody in America will have a new TV within 7 years. The most common TVs being sold today are considered smart TVs, which means they have Wi-Fi connectivity built in. And so if your TV and your set-top box are smart, they actually know what they're airing. And so you can just inquire over Wi-Fi and find out the exact thing.
And that ties back to the first screen, second screen flip that we've experienced with the Blu-ray control, which is a fairly esoteric niche right now because, Blu-ray players that are connected with an iPad that's connected, but that demo sells itself. And that's exactly where you're going with this. The set-top box implementations that companies like NDS are doing right now, where you can actually go over IP back and forth between the TV head end, I find that a lot more interesting than audio fingerprinting or audio watermarking. And I agree, it's a Band-Aid.
Now, a couple of interesting comments from the chat room. One says, from Cousin of Jab, talk about what fantasy football has done to advance this idea. Talk about social content attached to one of the most, engrossing content forms there is, sports.
I'm amazed there's not more. I'm stunned by the lack of innovative fantasy second screen apps. I think a friend of mine does, actually CBS Sports, no plug intentional. I do Yahoo Fantasy just to give both big companies, and I'm sure ESPN, blah, blah, blah. But I was told by a buddy that the CBS Sports second screen apps for fantasy are great. And he said that some of the games he was watching, he saw on his iPad that one of his players had scored before the screen showed it because of small time delays. Yep. But I think there's a wealth of opportunities. I'm truly amazed there's not more startups doing that, especially compared to the social TV stuff, which is a yet to be determined what people want to do. Fantasy sports has lots of money, lots of users, and a natural draw for innovation.
And it's an extension of the experience, which is exactly where the mobile device is great. Like once you're done with the game, or once there's a break in the game, then you engage with your experience and you stay in the moment. Yeah, I find it powerful too.
I was Cousin of John, not Cousin of Chab. I blame the typography on this stupid chat app I have here. Courier, damn you. Also, Ventura Bum says, give me a Top Chef second app. I want to know about the guest chef, his restaurants, etc. And I guess recipes. Man, what a perfect idea for an app. To bookmark a recipe when you see something being made, the two fat ladies or whatever, like chicken wrapped in bacon. So I want that recipe. Boom, save it.
Hate to say because I don't really love that channel, but QVC has had a second screen app that is so powerful in terms of you buy what you see right away. So and that's where your recipes and how they promote the product, not so directly, but through the experience that you're having with it, and it ties directly into that idea.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, I got the chance to talk to some QVC and HSN people when I was at Sling a few years ago, and they understand consumers and buying so well. And
they're like the Zynga of buying.
Oh, I mean, the stats they have is unreal on how people buy, what triggers, all that kind of stuff.
I feel bad because we started talking about buying when somebody wanted a recipe, but
I
apologize for that. But for me, it's related because
it's all about.
But the recipe apps make sense, by the way. And I also still go back to you almost don't even want to have to bookmark. You almost want the second screen app. You shouldn't necessarily need it while you're watching. It should just be, here's all the stuff about the episode you just watched, right? And here's every episode of every chef. I watch Top Chef. Here's every episode every chef just made. Here's the restaurants they're at. I actually went looking. I was in Chicago a few years ago, and I went looking for which Top Chef chefs are in Chicago. So there's so much of these bringing together kind of from your TV to your mobile life opportunities that I think it's going to be a fun few years ahead.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think all of these second screen apps need a much stronger standalone experience. Like you pick it up and you engage with the content even when you're not watching the show. How easy would it be to watch Top Chef? It knows the recipe.
Every show has a website.
Yeah, but it's behavior. Like you take this thing and the recipe appears. You walk over to your kitchen and you can cook it. It's not, it's almost like it needed to be mobile in the home before this was really a thing that people do.
Yeah, it needs to be more integrated. Like the statement, they all have a website. They also have a Facebook page, and sooner or later they'll have some kind of mobile experience.
See,
and but the good ones will make it end to end. The good ones won't just be just while you're watching TV. It'll take the concept of how does Top Chef fit into your life if you're a super fan, right? How does American Idol, right? If you're I'm not an Idol fan, but obviously it's very popular. I'm sure an Idol fan would love all of the recordings of all the artists that have gone on, maybe links to the original songs, right? If someone covers some classic 80s song, that you get the original video in there too, and that's being served up by Vivo, and you can share it on your Facebook page.
And you have an easy recording device now to do your own karaoke over it and share that, which was all possible before.
Absolutely. I feel about karaoke the same way I feel about 3D TV. Not positive.
No.
Speaking of which, so we don't think this is a gimmick. I mean, I believe that 3D is a gimmick. Many people in the content industry will think I'm wrong, but does this have the same danger of moving into gimmick territory? The idea of the second screen, the ancillary app?
Some of it, yes. Some of the stuff we're seeing. So Ole made the analogy earlier, the MySpace and Friendster era. I would say that today, second screen is more in the GeoCities era as it pertains to where we are with web and social. I mean, we're nascent. And so most of the startups that you even think are common today are probably going to fail. So we're so early in what's going on with TV and second screen, but I think it's unlikely that some of this won't gain momentum. If you think about what we just brainstormed as a fantasy football or a Top Chef type of app, those don't seem far-fetched. Whether or not you're going to do all these quirky check-ins, get points, win a prize, get some reward for watching a show, all that kind of stuff seems weird to me. But the fact that you watch a show, you want some immersive stuff, and you're going to go look things up later seems very connect the dots.
It's got to be more. It's got to get more seamless. Our devices know where we are. They know what we like. At some point they will just know what we're watching, and then it's probably an API that you can build experiences on top without really having to start an app per show or an app per startup. And I think that's the confusing fragmentation right now that makes the experiences weird.
I want to wait to bookmark the world. I'm sure that's out there.
There's got to be an app for that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Do we have time? Yeah, we have time for one more. What about the television manufacturers? I mean, we were talking about them knowing what they're watching. Now, my TV knows, obviously, or could know when I'm watching a broadcast show, but there's a time when I'm streaming a home movie or watching something over the internet on my Roku or my Boxee. Maybe it will know that, maybe not. But what is the role of the TV manufacturer in integrating with other living room devices, especially the ones on the couch?
I've spent the past 6 months talking to every TV manufacturer on the planet. So they don't all know. Some of them are investing hardcore in building app platforms so that their TVs are smart. Some of them are taking a very connected-centric approach where they're kind of opening up the TV to the network and letting things happen. A lot of them really haven't quite figured this out. They're all building their own second screen apps, but none of them, they didn't have iOS developers 2 years ago. In fact, they didn't have UI developers 5 years ago. So these are brand new challenges for the TV industry. Some of them are navigating very well, in my opinion, and some of them are really experimenting, which is great. Sony, Samsung, Vizio, and LG have put out some very, very advanced stuff just to see what happens, and I think that's great to see. It's rare to say that a Japanese or Korean or US consumer electronics company that effectively loses money on most of the TVs they sell is experimenting in a product category that people spend $1,000 to $1,500 on. I think it's great.
Just from I'm not really savvy in the manufacturing field, but just from the experience, really what the second screen does right now is what VH1 did with pop-up video. And pop-up video was on the TV. There was no mobile device to do that. And I think that's where the TV manufacturers have a huge opportunity right now to bring some of that metadata back onto the screen so you don't have to look down to find out who's on screen. Right? That could become an overlay. Or if you have a 21 by 9 TV, there's a huge space all of a sudden where you can put additional content into if you wanted to. I'm interested. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I would be interested in figuring out or helping to figure out those experiences.
And Ole, you work with content companies, with media producers.
And Hollywood studios, media producers.
And what's the trend there? What's their take on the second screen app?
I think it's all part of them figuring out the future of digital distribution and where the collateral content and the brand extensions need to go for people to experience them properly. Now that the DVD is kind of going away and the director's comment, where's the director's commentary?
That's what I was thinking through this whole thing. It's like I want the director's commentary on my iPad while I'm watching the show, with separate headphones, maybe different views, initial renderings.
That's exactly the stuff that we are experimenting with right now.
Send me your next demo. I want to see that. That's cool.
Are we not supposed to make fun of you for that statement, Rafe?
You make fun all you want. I still want it.
No, I mean, I think, but
there's only so
he
many
just
times.
proved your point that, that there's as many opportunities as there's shows and consumers.
Going all the way back to it, this is why 3D is a fad and connected and second screen isn't a fad. There's so much things that people are going to want. There is room for some app developer to figure out a simple platform for delivering you the side commentary. There's someone else can make the voting thing. Someone else can make the recipes thing. One of the biggest questions in my eyes right now, and I have a hard time seeing, is will you have 2 second screen apps or 200? Right? I think that's a very, very tricky thing to figure out, because when you go generic, you lose out on the Disney. I mean, all the companies Ola is working with. Disney doesn't want a generic experience. They want this animated, etc. experience. Try to sell me more lunchboxes. Right? That's what they're trying to do. And at the other end of the spectrum, as we were talking about in the hall, you have small TV. Effectively, TV startups, like the new shows, they don't have big budgets. They're not going to go invest in these massively immersive things, where generic stuff kind of makes some sense. But I have a real hard time figuring out what a consumer is going to be tolerating on their iPads. Will they have 10, 15 apps that they don't mind hopping back and forth between, or will they have 2? It's hard to figure out.
Or maybe when you fire up a show, the app comes over the network automatically, and there you have it, and it goes away when you're done if you want it to.
But
that sounds neat.
That does sound neat, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let's build it.
That's good. Well,
right. See you guys later.
That's the future where it's in the device.
All right. We are out of time. Thank you. Ole Luciens is the chief creative guy over at MX, which does second screen apps. Where can people go to see some of your product?
mx.com has a good selection of the work that we've done. Most recently, we've collaborated with Disney. If you go to disneyseconscreen.com, you can see what they've put out with our help. And
I will do that when I watch those shows with my kid. And Jeremy Toman is the chief product officer over at Digit. That's DIJIT.
That's right.
And they do a really cool program guide app. You want to tell us a little bit about that and tell us where to get it?
Sure. You can get it in the iOS store, Android as well. DIJIT, just search for it. You'll find it. So the app is designed to be both a TV guide and a remote control. The remote control part requires you to either have a Roku or to purchase a beacon from Griffin. They're about $50-$60 online, and it basically is like an IR emitter that sits on your coffee table and can control all the devices in your home. And then you use our guide to figure out everything from social stuff, what are your friends watching, we hook up with Facebook, as well as set up your own favorite shows, even have only your favorite channels. What's neat is you can, the average person only watches 12 channels. So in our app, you can just filter out all the channels you never watch and just see your own personalized guide. And that's what we're doing.
Jeremy, Ole, thanks so much for coming in. Steve, thanks for producing. We'll see you guys next week on another episode of Reporters Roundtable. See you then. Bye.
Bye.